Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Geeks from the Multiverse. I am one of your hosts, Matt, and we'll be talking about our favorite video game characters, not necessarily favorite of all time video game characters, but John and I's personal favorite characters from video games. So, as always, stay tuned and let's get geeky. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Geeks from the Multiverse podcast. I am your host, Matt, and with me, as always, is John.
What's up, everybody?
And before we get started, if you are listening in Spotify or Apple, just click that follow button. It really does mean a lot to us. And while you're there clicking around, give us a good rating. Like I said, we do love and appreciate the support that you guys give us. But we have our topic for today, which is favorite video game characters, John.
So, favorite video game characters, man. I mean, I don't know. For me, it kind of depends on what series you played kind of growing up, and I mean, there's different things that you can talk about. You can go back to back in the '80s. We're talking like Mario, and even like early '90s, like like Sonic and like the Hedgehog, and you got your animated characters like that. You got your popular characters that have been, like top, 10 of all time, things like that. So, I mean, we're not going to go traditionally like that. I mean, because you could go back and be like, oh, yeah, Mario and, Sonic and Link and, some of these other characters that have been around for, several years and stuff. But we're talking more like some characters that have, maybe they're not like your maybe top favorites, but like, maybe some that, have definitely made an impact in gaming today. I mean, it could have been even, 20 something years ago. It could have been whatever. I mean, it really just depends. I mean, because again, Matt and I have different, taste in different things like that. So, the best part about that is that, we can talk about different things and it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be on the same page, right? So like Matt might have different characters like, it could be Mass Effect. It could be, some other characters like that. And I could be like, hey, God of War, and again, two totally different series, but like those series to us could be different in different lights. And so like, that's the best part about, our interpretation. It's like, in for even you guys, like at the end of the day, your favorite video game characters, of course, do not have to match ours. Right. So these are just things that, over the years of like when we were playing and all these other things, because we've talked about in the past, like, our favorite video game series and some of the games that we love to play.
Yeah.
Now we're just talking about more of the characters behind some of these series and stuff like that we are like, hey, like these are really pinnacle, I would say characters that really kind of defined, like our gameplay and our style of different ways of doing things, But to go on, Matt, why don't you mention your first character?
So I am going to go, I think more. I mean, I guess there are kind of characters in some of the newer games, but definitely, old school Mortal Kombat games.
Yeah.
One of which I don't know if so much if they're, if he is so much in the newer games, but
I can elaborate if there is or differences, but
one of my favorite characters in the Mortal Kombat games was always Noob Saibot.
So to kind of give you a little backstory on Noob Saibot, right? So he was the original Sub-Zero. Originally, he was Bihan. So Bihan was the original Sub-Zero.
Right.
Quan Chi, well, let me put it this way. Bihan gets killed by a scorpion. Quan Chi then revives him to then become this like shadow kind of, and it's kind of weird. He kind of is like, it's like ink. It's like black ink, and his whole body is literally that.
So the whole story, I mean, the rest of the kind of the story in between there, because of all of the years of, killing and just relentless and merciless killing that Bihan had done over the course of his life. The story was that his soul was corrupted. And so when Scorpion kills him after that first tournament, he goes into the nether realm. And of course, Quan Chi, being who he is, resurrects him, stripping him of pride, compassion, and everything else basically that makes him human. So when he gets resurrected, he becomes kind of the shadow wraith. And in the game, he wears kind of every ninja in the game has the same kind of outfit. But he wears all black.
So like I would say in the newer games, like when they did Mortal Kombat 9, and then they did 10, 11, and then the newest one, they just basically did Mortal Kombat 1. He was in the 9 and 10 version. He was not in 11 or really the new remake of Mortal Kombat, which it kind of upsets me a little bit because especially in the last one, not so much this newer one. I'm hoping with the remake or really a reboot of it, they'll bring that character back. Because I mean, technically, right now, I believe Bihan is the main Sub-Zero. But he does. It's kind of weird, and I'll say this: so like in the new game that just came out, it was Bihan again being Sub-Zero, but then his little brother becomes Scorpion, which is weird. But in the game, that's what happens. So like it's a weird concept, but like his little brother becomes Scorpion, and then creates his own little. It becomes the not the Lin Kuei, but the.
That's another franchise that just totally messed up.
No, I know, but that's what happened in the reboot of this game. Is like that's what they did, and I thought it was weird because it was not really canon enough. Where Bihan typically, again, once he dies, like he would do that. But I'd be curious if they'd switch it up and maybe make somebody else maybe Noob Saibot down the road. But I agree.
Interesting, yeah.
I do agree that in the gameplay of like when I played Mortal Kombat 9 and then 10. Like he was a great player. I mean, honestly, he was a very like if you had to verse him,
the
like
teleporting was just part of like
he was. It was
he had
great
kind of the same teleporting like as Scorpion did, like through the back, and he would come out the other side. But he also had one where I don't remember if he went up or down in the screen, but he teleported like I think he went down and then up and did kind of a punch.
So because the thing was what he did was when he went down, it was like an ink floor.
Yeah, it was kind of like vaporized through it. Yeah,
right. It was basically like having a black sludge on the ground, and then he would just come up and like punch the shit out of you out of nowhere. So like that's kind of like the way of Noob Saibot. But the thing about him though that I liked is like when you're playing as him, like he had some great moves. Like there was just different things about him that was great. When you had to verse him, oh my fucking god, he was
hard. Yeah, he was
pain
hard. I mean, all the various teleporting stuff that he did and the shadow stuff that he threw at you, it just he was a very easy player to master the move set to, but he was a very hard player to beat as well.
I think in this case, like some of the newer ones, like
I think he had a sickle. I saw a picture of him with a black kind of a sickle.
He usually would have sickles, but to what I would say like now, like I would say the toughness of that character, I think what they kind of did was, and it's kind of stupid. But in the last, so in like Mortal Kombat 11 and then the newer one, they really kind of put more of an emphasis on Ermac. Not so much Noob Saibot, because like Ermac it's still a Quan Chi creation, things like that. But it kind of surprises me only because like, not saying that Noob Saibot wasn't a big part of it, but like you would think that maybe they'd want to like, bring him back.
Yeah.
Or especially at some point, because I mean he is a good character, but
I mean the main, I guess, if with Noob Saibot not being kind of in every Mortal Kombat, my always go to character, it wasn't. I mean, I played Raiden and I did Sub-Zero here and there. Johnny Cage was okay. Some of the main characters were okay, but my always go to was Scorpion.
So I mean I agree with you, man. I mean Scorpion was and has always been in like he's actually one of the very few characters besides Sub-Zero to be in a lot of other games, like be like a playable character.
Right.
So like Injustice was one. Like I know like that series. I think he made in some like appearances like Capcom and things of that nature. I know he's been in like random games like that or been mentioned or whatever. But I mean, he's a very notable character, and he's definitely has a great story, developmentally wise. I mean, especially when you look back at the days of early Mortal Kombat. I mean, he was the original, like he was a part of the original
Yeah.
series. He's they've of
Really
course they've had.
iconic fatality too with the
Oh yeah,
he
get
took
over here.
took the mask off and the flames come out the mouth and you have the opponent just turn into like this little singed skeleton thing.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, and he was the, again, he was the OG, like, and
Get over here.
right. And that was the thing, right? So like it was his move. And, like when you look at him in the movie Mortal Kombat, you know, I to me, I feel like they did a good job.
I
It
thought
was,
it was weird the kunai coming straight out of the hand.
no, I agree. That
But
was a little weird, but
it
I
was a
mean,
little
I
weird, but
think overall as like a visual aspect,
yes, I think
they did a good job with him. I mean, especially, I mean, I know Matt and I have talked about this multiple times, but like when you look at how the
I
90s version of Mortal Kombat
I
was
can
made.
say that the music, the music they play when Scorpion scenes, like fighting scenes, are like with that really heavy kind of death metal, really does help kind of solidify the character in the movies. But I mean, the game, the move set is really good. Like having the kunai, like being able to throw that and like when it hits the enemy, they kind of have this like weird stumbling, like "Whoa,"
You're like, whoa, what's going on
um,
here?
and they kind of get like stunned where you can pretty much do. I mean, I think most people always do like kind of an uppercut or something where they went flying back, but um, before the days of you know combo attacks,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
So, I'll mention one of mine. So, Kratos from God of War. Okay. The guy, let me just start with this. Okay. When you have one mortal man, okay, who's a Spartan, and he's a Spartan general, let's get that straight. And he literally, okay, he starts out as being a Spartan general and wants to defeat all his enemies. He makes a deal with Ares saying, "Hey, I want you to give me the power of a god and basically give me the strength to literally defeat all of my enemies." And he does that. Now Ares does this. And then of course, Ares also tricks him into basically killing his own wife and child at the time. And then of course, the ghost of Sparta comes into play, and he basically again he was a pale skin, but then he's now like it's like white skin coming all over him. It's the ashes from his family. Now the whole series, of course, like the main part of it was like he was killing Olympian gods and kind of going through all that. But like to me, when you're playing as him, I'm like basically Kratos. Like of course in mythology, I mean he's a real person or in the mythological setting of it. So it does make sense in some ways, but like it's weird when you see him like literally killing like Zeus, Poseidon. I know he kills Ares, he kills Athena. Like I mean, he literally goes through the lineup of all the Olympians and just kills them all. I mean, and we're talking a span of games here. And then they finally did what I thought was really interesting is that they decided to do it's like he stops being an Olympian god, basically the god of war, and then he transfers over into Norse mythology. Best decision they could have ever made because that even in those two games alone, I played a little bit of really the God of War, series in the beginning. It was hard for me to kind of like go back in time and play these games only because the one thing I hated honestly about the very early versions of God of War was the camera angles. I hated the fact that you couldn't move, you couldn't do like the open world concept. Like if they changed that, they would have changed the whole
they're
game.
very static.
It sucked.
Yeah.
Like it sucked in that regard. Like the gameplay, I mean, it could have been better if the camera angles weren't just stuck on one
If it
position.
followed the actual guy.
No, I know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like it needed to be more like what it is now
Yeah.
in that sense, and that would have made it a lot better. But playing through the God of War, Norse, side of the house, and then playing Ragnarok, dude. I know you haven't played all of it, but I'm telling you, when you play both of those games fully through, it's a great fucking story. Like it is a hands down one of my favorites because I played it and I couldn't stop playing it. It was like I was sucked into it. I wanted to know more. I wanted to see what was going on. And some of it, I'm not gonna lie, man, some of that shit was hard as hell. So like there's some of the points in the game where you're basically you're having to go against these Valkyries, and there's like 7 or 8 of them, and they just get more and more difficult. I even defeated one. I mean, there are people that do it, but I'm like, I still haven't. I still haven't done it because I know if I try I'm gonna get killed because you need a certain weapon class. You need certain things to get to that point where we're like, you need to be able to do all this shit, and it's
Yeah.
like it's hard as shit, man. But I'll tell you, God of War, like, or just really Kratos as a character, like, he's a badass man. Like, you look at him and you look at how, he's developed. The story is great. Like, literally, I would say it's one of the best storytellings I've seen in really a lot of games because it really goes into, a lot of different aspects. Now, granted, a lot of it, I've loved mythology. I've always loved like learning about different lores and different things like that. But I can say that, looking at Kratos and looking at gods and things of that nature, I thought it was cool as hell that they, especially in Ragnarok, they started bringing in Odin, they started bringing in Thor. They brought in more of the story behind, Norse mythology that I was like, oh, that's cool because now you see that, Thor is really not what MCU Thor is, right? He's not this big buff guy. He's actually a big kind of a fat guy, but he's kind of strong as hell, and you're not really seeing that, in nowadays because everyone thinks Chris Hemsworth is really Thor for some reason.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's one of those things that with, God of War that I think growing up, it was one of those ones that, you have a great story, you have a great, person telling it. I mean, Chris Judge, who voices the character, like, granted, he wasn't the original voice of Kratos. It was a different guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he does an amazing job. And I know that they're looking at trying to make a series, like I think it's a TV series they're trying to look at. So it'd be kind of like in that same aspect of like trying to do like The Last of Us. I'm hoping they do it really well because they can do really a great job with that if they do it the right way.
If they do it the right way.
And that's the thing though, because like they would need to kind of follow along, from the games. Now, granted, if they're going to do it, they really need to do it with the newer God of War. You could go back in time and start with that, but I mean, you need to really build up before you start going into the other newer stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's just me, and it's okay, man. I know you don't know a lot about God of War, which is fine, but I'll tell you, man, I know when you start to play it though, it's gonna change your mind about a lot of the gameplay and everything else. I mean, because Kratos, it's funny because I'll mention this real quick is like some of the things that he says in the I believe in the first game is like he'll start talking to his son and he goes, "Boy, come here, boy," and he's like telling him to come this way. He's like, "Yes, Dad, fetch." And it's there. He just says something really stupid, really like one line shit, and you're like, he's like, "Now." And it's like half the shit that he's saying. I don't know. You have to hear it. It's kind of funny, but like, I kind of want to do that with my son one day. But like, boy, fetch now, and then it'll be like, what the fuck? And you're like, do it now. I don't know. This is something stupid, but guys, yeah. I mean, to me, like Kratos is like a newer generation of, iconic kind of video game characters that now I would say is going to be in for people to know for generations because we've mentioned Mario and like Sonic and stuff, like people have known that for years, but like you need to have more general like really iconic people. So like another one that I have on here is Nathan Drake. So again, Uncharted, right? So I grew up, I played the first one. I've played them all. And the reason why I say this character is always a great one is because he's just a man, right? So he's basically a treasure hunter, right? And so I know they made a movie. I know you saw the movie, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I saw the movie. I can't say I'm a fan of the movie, but I have seen the movie. Yes.
So you can at least somewhat relate. But like in the beginning, right? So you got Nathan Drake, right? He's a treasure hunter. Basically just goes through and he goes to different. I mean, I actually talked about this in one of the episodes, but like basically he just in each of the games, like he just goes to different places and finds a certain treasure in a different region of the world, right? And so like the last game, it kind of gives you more of a backstory on him and his brother, as well as Sully, who in the movie, Sully is played by
Mark Wahlberg.
right? And then Tom Holland is Nathan Drake as a younger version. So it was weird, like I said, I know I mentioned this before in one of the earlier episodes we've ever done, that the movie, you start out in like the fourth game, goes to the first game, goes to like second, the third, it kind of like goes all over the place. Right. And it didn't make any sense. So that's where I was like, make up your mind, in the regards of like who you're going to pull in and who you're going to like start to really make a story out of. So the biggest thing about that is like the games itself. I mean, oh man, I'm going to tell you just like with Kratos and like God of War, it's a great story. All of the games have great stories. They have a great way of doing things. I mean, a lot of the game was really more about storytelling, but also like a lot of it was like puzzles. A lot of it was puzzles and like kind of like figuring out how to do certain things. Yeah. You're shooting, of course, like villains and different things. I mean, some of it's Nazis, some of it's some whatever. And there's different things throughout the games that are, of course, that are unique in their own right. And you're kind of like kind of exploring the world a little bit, but like to me, the game or the series of games really made the character because it was different in its own way. It was kind of like if you took Assassin's Creed and you took kind of the same concept of God of War, but made him a man. Like he doesn't have powers or anything. He's just like a regular person. And then, just basically making it a unique kind of story as itself. It's kind of hard to explain because it's like if you play the game, you'll know what I mean because it's a game that you'll play and then you won't stop playing. Like you just jump in and you're like, well, okay, I got to know more, and that was the thing about these games that I was like, oh, I started playing and I was like, I'm playing it. Like I'm going to play it all the way through. But the problem is like, just like those two games, trying to get 100% on these games or with these characters as well and doing it. Oh my God. It'd be like playing Call of Duty for like over 200 hours or more. Like literally it'd be like that. Like you'd be playing it for a while before you get to that point. But like, I just think that when you look at these characters, like you look at Nathan Drake, very simple man. I mean, technically he was technically Sir Francis Drake, who was actually a real treasure hunter, but like he was apparently like a descendant from him, which is not really the case. But like a lot of people, like in the game, like you're playing as him, they believe that, but really he's not a descendant. He wanted to be like him. I can't remember his actual name, but I think he changed it a while back, and they wanted it to be Drake. But like it was just ironic where you're looking at this kind of relatable character as a young character in the fourth game, where he's literally an orphan, and so he's just trying to make a name for himself. So I guess as kids and you're kind of looking at it as as an adult, you're kind of like, I could see that. I can kind of relate to a character like that, depending on your way of growing up. But like I feel like you're playing this game and you're like really kind of getting involved with the character, and that's the thing about a lot of these games nowadays. It's like with The Last of Us, it had a great story. So like that's why Uncharted and God of War, that's what you need. You need to have a story to really really get these characters to boast themselves up. I mean, when you just watch the movie, I know a lot of it probably didn't make a lot of sense and to kind of piece everything together.
It didn't make a lot of sense because it's the same thing like they did with the original, Resident Evil movie. You take an already good actually great video game. And you're like, okay, well, we're going to make a movie from this. But your movie includes 4 different games.
Yep.
That has 4 different stories. Instead of, just sticking with one and using a little bit of imagination to create a story around that one, the game had a story. The very first game had its own story.
Right. And that was the thing where, like I said, with Uncharted, the movie, when you have 4 different games, you could have had 4 different movies.
And that's, they did the same thing with Resident Evil. If you start with the core Resident Evil story, and then you kind of mix in this idea of Nemesis, which wasn't until much later on in the games.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's what I mean. It's just, depends.
That's why, I just wasn't a huge fan of that, because it was like, you're making it too much, like much more than it needed to be.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, you really could have waited to introduce some of these characters later on so that you could have built the foundation of said character. And
I do think they could have done better than Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland, but
I understand. Me. That was just because of that was Hollywood and everything else. But like I said, I would say to you, Matt,
the game characters. Yes, I've played a couple of the games.
Which one? Uncharted?
Yes, I think it was either 2 or 3.
It could have been the third one, or it could have been the second. I mean, because again, the very first game, maybe not. I mean, it came out in like 2005, 6 or something like that.
Yeah,
it was early on, but again, the games themselves. I mean, Naughty Dog, man, they're a great studio, and they've made some really great games. Yeah. And I'm telling you, they just. That was a series they really knocked it out of the park. But I'm just saying, you ever play if you ever play them all, just saying.
Yeah, it's good. All right, so mine, I'm going back. Mine goes way back. So I'm going all the way back to Metal Gear, bro.
Yeah, see, this is some old shit.
This is old shit right here.
Well, so hold on a second. So
I'm actually not going to the original game here, but I am going to go to the original game just to explain the character of Snake.
I didn't actually realize it came out in 1987, though.
So Snake comes from a game called Metal Gear, and so Snake is a former Green Beret who, in the game, is engaged in solo stealth missions to destroy models of a bipedal nuclear weapon-armed mecha known as Metal Gear. So the original game, which was, 87, I was a young lad then.
Hold on, let's see. You were 8?
8.
Sounds about right, yep.
I don't ever remember really playing the original.
I figured you probably wouldn't. Not at 8 years old, but...
But he was in the original game, he was actually a rookie recruit of the Special Forces units, Voxhound. So he is sent by Big Boss into Outer Heaven, which is a rogue nation in South Africa, to rescue Grey Vox and discover what Metal Gear is. And so, that's kind of the gist of the game. Like, he discovers it and just, goes to destroy it. The game that I remember playing, and this one is one of my favorites, is Metal Gear Solid. And in this one, he is basically sent on a mission to rescue these couple guys. And, as the game progresses, the game is basically like infiltration and stealth. Like, that's the core component of all of these games.
I mean, literally, it's like if you took even some of the original Splinter Cell.
But
in like that sense.
Especially this one, because the original game, and I think there were either 1 or 2 after it, those were all like kind of overhead 8-bit, your little kind of Mario type figure. Metal Gear Solid was not that. It was a whole, it almost did the same thing as like the original God of Wars with the camera. The camera angles weren't static, but they didn't move with the character really well. They didn't move very well.
No, because I do remember like a lot of it was overhead.
There were some that were overhead. There were some that were just kind of static. So, you would kind of walk and go kind of upstairs. and then the camera would move to the next kind of more like security cameras, I guess, if you were going to
yeah,
like
that's
kind of look
basically
at it
how I
that
would
way.
work it. Yep.
But in these, when you were playing this game, you could kind of see where the enemies were, and I think it was maybe like one of the first games where the enemies, when you saw them, they had kind of the iconic vision cones. I guess that's what you can call them, right? The little vision cones where you can
Yeah.
kind of see like where their vision was, and if they saw you, it was instant mission failure.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember a
And they
little
had
bit.
that iconic noise in this game.
I think I know what you're talking about. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I do remember. I just remember, like, honestly, I didn't really play a lot of it. I think it usually, this one was mostly, I remember my dad playing a lot of it, and I kind of remember watching him, playing it as well. But like, I do remember playing, or I might have played it a little bit. The point is, though, is that these games were very, like you said, especially with his character, like, it was very stealth. If you do anything wrong or basically make the wrong sound or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you would hear the noise where they were alerted. You would see like the exclamation point,
Like,
and
uh-oh.
they would come and try to find you, and you would have to kind of like run away and try to find a place to hide. And they would come looking for you, and if they couldn't find you, they would go and reset and do their normal walk.
Right, or if you could get them in time, what you try to do is, in
Yeah.
this case, you try to take like your silenced pistol or something like that, and just like try to pop them in the head real quick.
Or if you were really, really quick and wanted to be daring enough, you could pull out the cardboard box and stay right there, right in the middle,
And
and
they're like, "What?"
not move. Because that was one of the things in the game is you had this cardboard box that you could just kind of sit under, and sometimes the enemy would come and like look at it and move away, or sometimes they would like kind of kick it, and then you'd have to kind of run and hide again, like all over again.
And you're like, "Well, what's the point of me doing that?" I don't know.
But the game is really, really iconic, and I think this one kind of like reestablished Metal Gear, where the Metal Gear Rex, which is the one that's the version of Metal Gear that's in this game. Um, it sets up these characters that were part of this corrupt faction that's now Voxhound, which is Revolver Ocelot, which I think in some of the future games he's part of. He was more of like a Western style gunslinger. He had a Colt single action army like pistol.
Oh, yep.
Sniper Wolf. That one speaks for itself, I think.
Oh yeah, Vulcan Raven.
He was a Alaskan shaman armed with an M61 Vulcan torn from a downed F-16.
That's a very interesting character.
Yeah, yeah. Psycho Mantis. This one, he was very, very difficult in the game to beat. He was a psychic profiler and psychokinesis expert.
So okay, so this next one, hold on, I'll read this one. Decoy Octopus, a master of disguise.
Yes.
Decoy Octopus was his name.
He wasn't an actual octopus, though, John.
I understand that, but what is up with these names? Like, why Revolver Ocelot? Let me guess. It was because he looked like an ocelot and he held a revolver in his hands.
Actually, he just kind of looked like a Western gunslinger.
But you understand what I'm trying to say here? It's like, what is up with the names of like different animals and stuff?
I think it's just the names they gave him.
Yeah, like Cyborg Ninja.
Well, so the Cyborg Ninja is who they call in the game. They call him Liquid Snake.
Okay, so I do remember that.
And Liquid Snake ends up being, so Solid Snake and Liquid Snake, which is kind of like their weird kind of code names, I guess, that they're given in the game. They're actually twin brothers that were conceived from Big Boss, which Big Boss was from their first original game.
Okay.
And they were taken from Big Boss's genes, and what was explained in the game was that Liquid was given all of the good genes, like the good soldier superior genes, and then Solid Snake was given the inferior soldier genes. Which is why I think basically in the games, I think basically that is why, as Solid Snake, you're doing more of the stealthy
Mm,
missions,
yep.
and Liquid Snake, at least in this game, is doing more of the combat, like soldier
Soldiering part of it, yeah.
work.
Well, technically, you play as Solid Snake. I feel like for a majority of these games.
For a majority, some of the newer one, I mean, I know there was a newer one that came out with Snake in it, but there was a few in there that didn't have Snake in it,
Okay.
and I think there was a few that had Liquid in it, um, which I don't think Liquid was a villain the whole time. Like, he was a villain obviously in this one, but I don't think he was a villain after this one.
Okay.
I don't remember how this one ended, but the gameplay is solo, it's stealth, um, being detected, and what I mean by being detected, like if one of the soldiers sees you face to face, it's instantly over. Like,
Oh no, yeah, no.
you don't have a chance to run away. Now, if they spot you, as you're running around a corner, it's not instantly over because they'll try to come and try to find you, and you still have time to hide. But if they're like face to face with you, then
You're done.
you're done.
No, I mean, and I would say like especially nowadays, like you're not seeing a lot of those games that even do that now because like that's another.
No, I mean, most of them are like Splinter Cell, where if they see you, the expectation is, I'm
gonna
just
kill
going
'em.
to pull out my pistol and I'm going to shoot him.
Or another one. Well, I think of also Hitman back in the day. Like so, like those series of games. It's kind of that same thing, but granted.
I used to love taking people out just to wear their outfit.
I know what you're talking about. No, but like that's that kind of
A
series
little
of games.
wire, yeah.
Well, that's kind
Yeah.
of what it reminds me of. Like you think
Yeah.
of like Hitman series and things like that, but like there's not many games that do that now. It's very
No,
few.
there's not. I don't know if there's really any games that do this. The only one thing about this game, well, there's two things that I can think of real quick. Which was one of them is, I don't know, and maybe you guys can reach out and tell me what the cigarettes were for. Because to this day, I still don't know what the cigarettes are for, because they actually did damage on your health. So I don't know what the cigarettes are for, other than maybe alerting enemies.
Maybe.
I,
As a
I,
decoy?
I don't know why you would have them in your inventory. But between the, alerting the enemy noise and the radio communication codec noise,
Mm. Yeah.
those two, Metal Gear, noises are so iconic for the game. But as far as like the character itself, like, he's so iconic.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, I get the like he is a very iconic, but it's funny. He's only on what system, man?
I can play the game on PlayStation.
No, but was it only a PlayStation, or was it? I don't believe it
No,
was on
I
Xbox.
played it on Xbox.
Or did you play it on Xbox?
Yeah.
I thought it was on only PlayStation.
I think they've remastered it for PlayStation.
Only for PlayStation?
I believe so. I mean, it was. I think it was initially.
I thought it was originally only for PlayStation. I didn't realize it was for Xbox as well.
Because I've never had a PlayStation up until my PS4.
Okay. I'm just saying. I was surprised that they did that. I originally thought it was only for PlayStation because I do remember like the original or some of the earlier versions of Metal Gear Solid and things like that. Like they were on the PlayStation. I just didn't remember it being on the Xbox.
No, see, I've only had Xbox before I got the PS4, so I definitely probably have played it on Xbox.
Okay.
But I mean, the games are now, like, you can get them on PlayStation.
Oh yeah, no,
Obviously
I get that, yeah.
remastered, but and this is like a character, I think, as far as a video game, where there's not a whole lot of new content right now for Metal Gear or the character itself. I could see this being maybe not some. I mean, it would be a cool movie, but I could see this being a show.
Yeah, I can see it being a show. I mean, as long as they do it the right way.
Again, and that's like God
That's
of
the
War. Like, if they do it the
Do
right way,
then they could make it like Matt and I said. When you look at The Last of Us, that is the expectation. That is the standard of what movies and TV shows should be following now when it comes to video games. Plain and simple. If they don't follow that, there are going to be some issues.
Yeah. It's funny though, because when I was actually looking this up, I didn't put this in the notes, but the actual character creation for the American version,
Yeah.
because I think the Japanese version, he looked different,
Oh,
and I don't know what he looked like because I didn't look that part up. At least the American version, because the game is a Japanese 100% Japanese
oh yeah.
game. When they were making the American version of it, they designed the character to look like popular movie like actors,
Really?
like movie characters. So when you look at the character in the game, like he kind of has that like kind of Rambo, he has like
Yeah,
the
bandana.
the bandana around his head and has that typical like action movie, look to him.
I never thought about it like that. I know what you're saying now, but it seems weird to me that they would literally just say, we're just gonna take some random actors and celebrities and just like make a character out of it.
I thought it was interesting. I mean, it was like you're literally just gonna like look at popular,
Actors of the day and just
like
like, cool.
actors in movies and characters like Rambo and like Commando and stuff like that, and be like, yeah, we want them to look like that.
We're gonna take some features and we're just gonna there you go.
Yeah.
You're like, whatever. So I'll mention this next one. So Matt played a little bit of this game. I will say that. I know he didn't really play the whole game. I kind of wish he played the whole game because I'll tell you, it's another great game, and I know they're actually making a second one, and they're actually making I think they confirmed it. I think they're making either a movie or a TV show. But the game is Ghost of Tsushima, but the character is Jin Sakai. Okay, so a buddy of mine from I'll say it from church. I know we don't talk about, religious views and things like that, but it doesn't matter. But anyways, he showed me the game, and I remember just getting home from so again, guys, I don't know if I've already said this, but yes, I'm, military. Okay, so I was on a deployment, came back home, and literally the guy, because this is when the PS5 was still like relatively new, and like I was like, yeah, like I really want to get into it. So he like shows me the game, and I'm like, yeah. I was like, what is this? He's like, oh, it's called Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm like, what the hell is this? He's like, oh man, it's so cool, man. You play as a samurai, you literally kill the shit out of like Mongols and all this other shit. And I'm like, man, that sounds fucking cool, man. I was like, that's awesome. And I remember now, this was my fiance, not so much my wife at the time. She's like, yeah, honey, I buy that game for you. And I said, I really want to buy you the PS5. And I said, honey, I love you, but I know with the money right now, it's like, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Well, that was dumb of me to say that because I wish she would have bought me that at the time. It's not a big deal. But anyways, but the game itself, okay, so you're playing as Jin Sakai, okay? He's a samurai. He's a warrior. It's just an interesting concept because it's like, it's feudal Japan, right? You're in like I don't know, it's like the 1500s, something like that. But basically the Mongols come over, and it's basically the Attila the Hun, okay, who is Genghis Khan's, I believe it's Genghis Khan. I don't know. But anyways, it's like his like cousin or some shit like that. Or Attila the Hun's like whatever. It doesn't matter. Point is, it's like he's a very famous Mongol, his cousin of him, whatever. So he comes over and he like basically says, we're gonna take over fucking the island of Tsushima. Comes in, fucking invades the whole place. And now your mission is you're this one samurai who basically, of course, in the beginning of the game, your whole clan, as well as everyone else, gets annihilated. Pretty much. Majority of them gets annihilated. And you're like, bitch, I'm ready to take my home back as a fucking samurai, man. And you just go in and I don't know, man. Like this game was amazing. It was amazingly done. I think the characters and the story. I'm telling you, man. I love a good story, and that's why a lot of these characters really kind of define a lot of really these games I like to play. So like when you play this game, you jump in and it's like again, I just love good stories that tell a great character development. Like that, a lot of these characters do that because they take the time to sit there and do this. And again, what was it? You got Naughty Dog who made, Uncharted. I can't remember who made God of War. It's pissing me off. Not a big deal. Santa Monica Studios. Great, series of games right there. Another great studio, Sucker Punch. Okay, these
Yeah.
guys know what they're doing. They make great games for a reason, right? So this is why I'm saying, when you look at these characters like Jen Sakai, I don't know, like the customization in this game, I was really surprised. Like, it's generally unique in a way because like you can, like in the game itself, like you can basically, dye your, different, outfits and things like that. So I mean, like you basically, you start to play the game, you start to build, like reputation, but like basically you have like skill points and you have all these different things. But it, when I look at the game, and that's why I told man, I said, I really wish some of these games I wish you played because I'm telling you, I know you'd appreciate a good story and a good thing. And I know you didn't play all of Ghost of Tsushima besides like the multiplayer a little bit, but like the game itself it's on another level because I know they're making a second game, and I know that I think they're making either a movie or a TV show. But again, it's because these games and these things have done so well, they want to make it a reality, which I'm like, that's great. I'm like, please, as long as they do it the right way. Third time I've said this, and
Yeah, I mean, it's key that they do it the right way. And yeah, I mean, I've played the multiplayer, and I mean, yeah, granted, multiplayer. Obviously, you know how I feel about multiplayer games.
well, it
Like,
depends on
I'm
the
I'm
game.
I'm not a huge fan of a lot of multiplayer games. Especially if they're like PvP. Like, I'm not a huge fan of that. Um,
No, but I mean, like, it depends on the game. I mean, when you and I have, I know it's kind of off topic here, but like, if we played like Far Cry or something like that, and we're doing it together, and we're just versing a bunch of bots and shit like that, it's not a big deal.
right,
But
right.
I understand if like we were playing Fortnite.
Well, you wouldn't catch me on
No, I
Fortnite.
know I wouldn't catch myself either. But what I'm saying is though is like, you're playing these games. Some of the games I wish that kind of like God of War or kind of like Uncharted. Like some of them did do multiplayer, but in a weird way. It was kind of like they decided to do like a knockoff version of COD. Like especially with
Right.
Uncharted.
Yeah, and it just kind of sucks.
Well, and it's like for me, it's
Yeah.
like if you did like a lot of the games, I really wish they would have done like a co-op. Goes to Tsushima as a co-op. I think it would have been fucking phenomenal, especially in that game. That's just me. It
Yeah,
would
I
have
mean,
been phenomenal.
I mean, I've said it to you many, many times. Like, even Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I said if they've had a co-op campaign, or if zombies, I understand. Right now they made the DMZ into their zombie mode, which on paper sounds great. And I love that there's no actual players that you have to beat because that sucked on the regular DMZ.
That's true.
But it's still hard as shit. And if they actually made a zombie campaign that was co-op without all the teleporting bullshit that was
Yeah.
in, Vanguard and some of the other ones, like a lot of these games would be kind of cool with like co-op options.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, when kind of looking back at that game, it's like, I could see it being a co-op because it kind of gives you that, that feel of like, hey, I could play it like when we were playing like Far Cry together, right? So that same feeling of like, okay, I'm on a mission, we can both do it. It kind of like intertwines with each other, kind of like when we played like Wildlands or some shit like that, right? So you get into it and then you
Right.
play it together, and you're doing it at the same time, and we don't have to go back and we don't have to restart some other shit like that. But like in the game, it's like if it fluid enough where you could basically like there are times where I'm like, dude, I need another person. Because like, you could do it by yourself, of course, but it takes so fucking long, to do it. But if you had another person in the game with you, it's like, yeah, well, Mr. Matt over here, I'm going to call him out. He'd be like, oh, fuck, being silent the entire time. He said, fuck that shit. I'm going to go fucking in loud. I'm going to blow shit up while I'm at it. And I look at him and I said, now you want to know why we died 500 times? Because you wanted to go in loud every single time. But
Well, I
anyways,
have this grenade launcher, it just sits here.
no, but like in some games like that, I just think
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
I think it'd be a cool concept. But like, I'll say this, playing as a samurai, playing as literally a mortal who becomes a god, or playing as a treasure hunter who basically on a everyday basis basically tries to find a way to get himself killed every 2 seconds. It's just the different stories and the way they portray these characters and stuff is amazing, and that's why these studios and why these characters are now, in my opinion, especially for this generation moving forward, is why these characters are going to be, I'd say maybe down the road, but like on the same level, it potentially down the road as as your Mario, as your Sonics, as your whatever. Because if they continue to make these stories and make those characters the way they are,
Yeah.
they're going to be up there. That's just me. But I know you got one more, and I got one more.
Yes, I have one more, and I saved kind of the best one for last, if you will. And this one is a game I played this one a lot. I actually bought the Legendary Edition when it came out on PlayStation. I am really sad though that the multiplayer from number 3 is not there, because
Mm.
I actually did love the multiplayer, which was a kind of 4 player kind of a co-op kind of idea. But this game is Mass Effect.
Yes, and I know Matt wanted me to play Andromeda. I think we tried that once, and I was like, I'm done. I don't know
Yeah,
what the hell that shit
Andromeda
is.
wasn't good.
I think the problem is that
It,
I
it,
wish I would have played it with you in the beginning, like in the very first one, and then like if there was a multiplayer, you know what I mean, and
yeah,
then be able to do it. But like I don't know. I think they should have done it from the very beginning and had like a co-op throughout all 3 games. That's just
yeah. I
me.
mean, with Mass Effect, 1, 2, and 3, like the character that I'm talking about here, obviously, is Commander Shepard. And what's great about the character, just right out of the gate, is that between Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, and then Mass Effect 3, is that each game did not have a different character. Each game had the same Commander Shepard. So when you play through Mass Effect 1, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, we're making Mass Effect 2. Well, guess what? You're going to be able to import your saved game with the same character into Mass Effect 2.
So and that is the one concept that I wish that a lot of games would have done,
Yes.
because they don't do that now, because it's like they
This is
make
the
a new
only
game.
game I've ever seen do that. And they didn't stop with 2. They did it again with 3. So you have this character that you spend hours playing number 1, leveling him up all the way to the point where he's already, fully leveled up. You've devoted all your points into your abilities and your skills. Number 2 comes out. It's like most games, like, you have to kind of start over because it's a brand new character, a brand new story. No, no, no. Mass Effect 2 was the same character. The story changed obviously because it's a new game,
Right.
but the narrative of the story was the same in all 3 games. All 3 games is basically one long like movie.
No, I mean, and that's what I mean. It's like I just wish there was games like that where you could technically, customize a character and completely, continue with what you were doing and the skills and everything else that you did already, and that's where, when you have games like that, and there's a reason why that he would be an iconic character is because, you have there's a reason why it was one of the best series, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it was of all time, but if it was definitely in like this generation or this decade or whatever it was at the time, but like it was considered. I know it's won multiple awards.
Oh yeah, it definitely has.
You know,
Especially for, the voice acting, and um Jennifer Hale is the like one of the ladies that's in the game, and I forget the guy's name. But
no, but like when you have a series like that where you're able to create a story, and I know it's different every time, because I know like this one also kind of one of the very first times too to like introduce character choices and how you pick and choose where you go or how you do certain things, or if you want to basically have sex with random ladies, like does that continue on in the other
You
series?
very well can do that, and I don't know so much in Mass Effect 1, but definitely 2 and 3 you can.
Right, but does that have choices affect later on?
Well, and that's the thing, like the choices that you make in 1 do reflect in Mass Effect 2.
Hmm.
So whatever choices that you made in 1 reflect in number 2, because they do talk about it. And then the choices that you make in 2 reflect also in 3. And so, you have to make choices, and depending on like which direction you're going and what you actually do, because like, in I think in 2 there's a point towards the end of the game where you have to choose like who's going with you and who's not on that certain mission, and who's doing, like who's going to be climbing into the vents to do this, who's coming with me to go on the assault, and who's going this way to take out the computers. And you have to choose like the best person for each role. If you choose the wrong person, that person in your group will not make it to the third game. Like that's kind of the choices that happen in the game.
Well, see, and that's what I'm saying about like a series like that, where you're talking about an iconic series like that, and then you're creating basically this long giant game, but then now split it into three different parts. I mean, what they should do is, I know that didn't they? I don't know if they remastered it or did
Yeah,
they?
they made a legendary edition.
No, but what I mean is more like, you know, is it still, like, are they still like updating it? Are they doing anything with it, or if
I
they?
don't think they're doing anything with it right now.
Hmm.
There were talks about doing the multiplayer, but I don't think they're doing. I mean, the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, the only thing that was really broken about it was I mean, it basically was a whole like kind of a loot grab type idea,
Oh,
where you would play and you would have to kind of buy crates
oh,
to really get like the characters and get gear and stuff like that. And that was kind of the downfall, is like you really didn't earn enough like credits in the game to get enough of those
oh, to be able to. Yeah, all right.
to get them, or you had to really just keep grinding and grinding and grinding to really get them. And each crate was completely 100% random. Even the rare
Oh,
ones were
so
completely
you,
random, so you really couldn't.
so you could buy a crate. Now, granted, could you get the same thing twice?
I don't believe you can get the same thing twice, but you probably could spend about $1,000 and not still get that one character you were looking for.
Oh God, I
That
feel
was
like
the
that'd be a waste of
one.
time.
That was the one drawback with the game. But I mean, it basically went like kind of like zombies. I guess it's kind of the same idea. It went by 10 waves,
Oh, yeah.
and you have 4 players. You would pick your race, and each one in particular has its own class and what they do.
Okay.
And it's basically survival. It's a survival mode. So
So I mean, so
you would
again,
be up against like either the Gath or whatever that alien race was, and you would have to survive each round, each wave. And as each wave progresses, it gets harder and harder.
I guess the real question is why I feel like most games don't want to do like we've talked about the co-op campaign. Like, why isn't Mass Effect doing that, especially with a game like that?
I tell you, the multiplayer was ridiculously fun. I mean, yeah, granted it was survival, so it got tiring after a while.
No, but you know what I
But
mean.
it,
Like,
it
if
was it
you
was
got,
so it was so ridiculously fun, and
I was only saying that because, like, if you were
I
doing a
think it
co-op
would be
though,
so much more fun, like with games of Call of Duty, to have like get rid of your stupid campaign. One, once people play the stupid campaign, they don't ever look at it again.
that's true. They really don't.
I You might have what 5 people out of the millions that are playing it that might go back to that.
Well, now if they want to do like 100%, then they might, because they're going to want to
They might go back to it, but that it's only for that purpose. They're not going back to it because like, oh, I really like the story. I'm going to play it again.
No, it's only for.
I would much rather have a co-op campaign that be like, hey, let's play the campaign again, or like, hey, let's play these missions again.
Well,
it gives us something to do. That's like
the only reason why I was saying about like Mass Effect being a co-op, kind of experience is because of that. It's because of having the opportunity, especially because of because of that iconicness and everything else. Like I understand it's a one-player game in general, but if you had a co-op mode throughout the entire thing, and you made choices, right? So like, I don't know. I just feel like, I mean, granted, it might be a lot of work, but you could definitely make it. So that way it could, potentially be something. It could be a whole nother game, or it could be a whole nother experience that you never would have known, especially with somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, if they could make something like this that was more Borderlands style.
Oh, here we
Where
go.
it was, I mean, Borderlands, you literally can just drop in to somebody's game, but it doesn't change the gameplay.
No, you're right. I mean, and that's where I'm saying, like, if you did something like that, you could make it interesting enough where you could. That's what I mean. But unfortunately, with Mass Effect, they stopped. They made Andromeda, and that completely failed.
Right.
But,
And supposedly there was supposed to be another one in the works, but again, this is another game franchise that would make for either a great series of like movies or a great TV show.
Absolutely. It just, and what do we say, Matt? It depends on
They
how
have
it's
to
made.
do it right. But I mean, Commander Shepard for the character that he is, I mean, you're talking, a badass character. He pretty much like from the get-go in each of the games, like you can fully customize them. And, even from the first game, you can go online and they actually have, people actually put in, there was a website that was made.
Oh, specifically just for Commander Shepard?
Just for Commander Shepard, where you could put in the Shepard profile codes. And I mean, there was celebrities, there were comic book characters, like all kinds of, you had ones that looked like, Rambo and, different celebrities and different,
Characters. Yeah, that makes
different
sense.
characters, male, female, blonde hair, blue eyes, like just different characters all together. Like you got some really weird looking ones and
You got some
real fugly ones.
I mean, you got some like, I got some meeting that train boy looking.
But if you were like, hey, I really want my Commander Shepard to look like James Bond.
Yeah.
Well, you can go onto this site and you can literally do a search for James Bond and you'll probably come up with like 10, 20 hits of people who made like a James Bond looking Commander Shepard.
Right, because I was going to say Commander Shepard, I know, was portrayed as a male, but I knew you could do it as a female. And
you could do it as a female
if you wanted to, right? Okay.
But that was kind of like the biggest thing, and to be able to play like you can play the game like an infinite number of ways, like different classes, different
and that's what I'm saying.
Guns, armor, play styles, like
that's what I'm saying about these games is like you could find different ways to make it a different experience every time you play without having it to be feeling like it's the same thing over and over again.
I think I've played this game more times than I can count on my hands and feet.
No kidding. That's a true believer, my friend. Sounds like I need to play it and just call it a day, right?
If you haven't played Mass Effect, then yes, John, you need to play Mass Effect.
Okay, so then if I'm going to do that, then you're going to play the games that I just mentioned to you.
We'll see.
Oh, no, there is no we'll see. Like, I gave you, if you're telling me I have to play 3 games, I've given you 3 games. Well, technically, multitude of games.
I mean, Mass Effect is technically one game because it's...
Oh, sorry, just one long experience.
It's one long experience.
Okay, well, maybe when I have some free time and I want to play all 3 games at once, then I'll look at it.
It's iconic, but Commander Shepard is probably my number one on my list.
Okay, all right. So then my last one. It's not my number one on my list. I mean, I think they're all at the same level. But Matt, I know he's played at least the first one of this one. I know he has. I will say that he has.
The Pac-Man. It's Pac-Man,
It's
isn't it?
Pac-Man. No, it's not. It's actually the Marvel Spider-Man games that they came out with. I know you played the first one, and I know you've played Miles Morales. Is that correct?
I mean, I've played a lot of Spider-Man games.
Okay. I'm talking about the Marvel Spider-Man, as in like the one that came out on
And
PlayStation.
yes, I have played both, and I think I've beaten both.
Okay. I know you played both. I know you haven't played the second one yet of the Spider-Man 2 that has came out on PS5 only.
No, because I don't have a PS5.
Yes, you're right. I know you haven't played that, but I will say this. So what Marvel did, I know it was Insomniac Games. Again, another great studio, another great people to go through. Yes, I know Spider-Man, and if we're going to talk about, characters and stuff, I've always liked Spider-Man also as a comic book hero and stuff like that. I love the story. I love his villains. To me, it's like if you take Batman villains and like put it in Marvel, it's like, granted, maybe not that quite dark, but like Spider-Man villains, I don't know what it is, but he's got some weird ones, but he's also got some of the most, it feels like almost iconic, depending on which, kind of like what you're looking at here. But anyways, the game itself in the first one, Miles Morales, and even in the second one, again, they tell a great story, right? So they kind of, they don't do your traditional, going back to high school per se in this one with Spider-Man wise. Like they don't start them out in high school. They basically just kind of drop them into like probably like a year or two, maybe after high school ish. He's like probably in that like, weird college kind of like trying to figure out my life phase. And again, so Spider-Man I know has been done so many times and so many portrayals and so many things like that. But I think in a video game, if we're just basing it off the video game, it does a good job on explaining, who he is, and kind of gives you that picture of like, yep, his girlfriend, yes, Mary Jane, right? Very iconic, another iconic, person in his world, right? Because then you got Gwen Stacy as another, high school sweetheart, whatever. You got all these different characters and in different, storylines and everything else. But when I look at this character in the game, it was a little weird. I will say this. So when you play Spider-Man, the PS4 version originally, okay, I also know they remastered it recently. The one weird thing about this, in the original Spider-Man game, he is actually different than because in the remastered version, they actually change his entire look or his face. Keeps the whole body, but the face is actually different. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
So in the original Spider-Man game, like when the one that came out in 2018, because he had a certain face, he had a very specific face. They remastered the game a little while ago, and and it was weird because you see it actually. You would have noticed it in Miles Morales. Did you see the difference in his face in Miles Morales?
I mean, I played Miles Morales a while ago, so I mean,
so I didn't know about it either until I noticed it in Miles Morales when I saw his face, and I'm like, "Who the hell are you?" Like I kid you not, they literally switched his entire body, or not his body, but his face. Never would have noticed it, and then I'm like, what is going on here? They did, and I did not know that they did that, and I was like, what the you know what I mean? Like, why would you randomly just change his face all of a sudden, especially when you remastered it, and now Miles Morales, they're like, yep, we're gonna get rid of his face, and then in the second game, it's literally that's his face now. Like, there's no, it's weird. It is weird, and I never understood that. But anyways, with that being said, right? So and it's very weird. I played the second game just recently, and I'm telling you, I've only done 2 other games 100%. I mean 100% in a game. Because a lot of games that I've played, it's very, very fucking hard to get 100% and get that platinum trophy.
Yeah.
Okay. I've only done it with 2 other games. Okay. And those games, granted, they were my childhood games. There's a couple of games that I've been really close, but it's like, I'm like, do I really want to go back and like just spend that stupid however many hours just trying to get that
Yeah.
stupid trophy? So it's very hard to get it in a lot of, whether you're Xbox or PlayStation, it doesn't matter really. But to get 100% is like, it's a challenge. And some people do it and they're like, yeah, I can do it within a certain time. I kid you not, I played this game and it was kind of sporadic and I was kind of doing whatever. And I didn't even, I was just kind of playing it and I was just enjoying it. And I swear to God, man, I looked at how many hours I played it for. I played it for 36 hours and I got 100%.
I can tell you one thing. I mean, playing, I played Miles Morales and I played, the Spider-Man game, but I've played other Spider-Man games, in the past.
Well, yeah,
And
you're talking
I-
about like the old school like PlayStation or like
Right,
Xbox
right,
or whatever.
right.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think like as a video game character, not even, just a character in general, like comic book or
Oh, yeah.
TV show or whatever. It's interesting playing as Spider-Man in a game. Like, I mean, obviously, one of the favorite things I always kind of like either playing Miles Morales or playing Spider-Man, like the newer one, not 2, but you know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah. Yep.
I kind of always catch myself just freaking web slinging around
Yeah.
the damn city, and I'm going, what the hell is it I'm supposed to be doing? Because all I'm doing right now is web slinging through the city. But like that,
Yeah.
it always just becomes like the favorite thing to do. Like I'm just web slinging around like a stupid idiot.
No, I know,
Because
but
like I'm just like I'm doing stupid flips and twists and like
different tricks and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But like, so what's funny is like I do remember some of the. It was Spider-Man. I know it was like 1 or 2 or whatever. Because they instead of it was like Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man because they made like those games originally, and I remember playing those back in
Yeah.
the day and how stupid it looked. When you're like playing it on the screen, and you're like, it's all like blocky, and it's like and he's just he's kind of doing his thing, and you're just sitting there like, this is not what it's supposed to look like.
It just becomes like my favorite thing, and like especially those ones where it's like it's very much open world. You can go anywhere.
Yeah,
like-
you do whatever you want.
I try to find like the tallest buildings, and
Yeah.
I'm zipping up the buildings, and I'm like trying to get to the very tippity top, and then it's kind of like almost Assassin's Creed where I jump off, and it's like, and then like my heart's like going into my stomach because I'm like, oh, this was a bad idea.
So I kid you not, it's gonna sound really weird. So there's a trophy in the second game. I kid you not, it's just called Splat. Okay, and no, it's bad. It's funny because I did it. So what happens is it says you have to perform a trick, and then you have to fail the trick while hitting the ground. Okay, so of course, like so the one thing about PlayStation that I do like, I don't know if it does it in like the Xbox. So and you'll at some point, man. Okay, when you play for the PS5, what they do now is they give you hints on how to get said trophy, which is nice. So, of course, I was just I already knew clearly how to do it, but I was just like, I'm gonna see what it looks like. So I saw a video of it, and of course, it was the guy mid attempt in a trick, and he was like, ooh, and then he just like, I kid you not, it's like full right on the ground, literally concrete imprint, and it's like bam, and it's just like, and I knew to look at him, and you're like, fuck, that looks like it hurt, man, but like you're doing it, and it's funny as hell to watch because like all of a sudden you're just like, he's just in mid flip, and all of a sudden he's like bam, and you're just like, oh well, you have Spider go splat, there you go. It's like it's no big fucking deal, but no, I just think that Spider-Man, like as a character, I think, they've done a lot of games with him, but I think these newer, Insomniac games have really stepped up the bar, for a lot of, like superhero games in that sense, because like, I know you and I played Marvel's Avengers and things like that. It was okay. It wasn't as great as I would have liked it to be. But I mean, if Insomniac kept going with not just only Spider-Man, but like some of the other characters, it could be
Yeah,
a
and
very
I mean, I
interesting
think,
experience.
I mean, obviously, I think when Marvel Avengers came out, as fans of Marvel and video games, obviously, like we were like, "Oh, this game's gonna be great. There's gonna be all this content that's gonna come out," and then literally, I think they just gave up on the damn game,
Yeah.
and it was just the same repetitive nonsense. Like, yeah, they had characters that came out, and they did stuff that you could buy.
Right. If you wanted, that's all it was. It was just buying
But
random
there
shit.
wasn't anything new that was added that was like, new campaigns or new this or new that. It was the same old missions that go on. You log into the game and it's like, oh, it's the same crap.
Yeah. And that's the thing where, when you look at these games that Spider Man, like the newer Spider Man games that came out, like, you're looking at Peter Parker, you're developing that character, you're getting involved in the story. You look at Miles Morales, like, you're getting to know the character, you're getting to know that different Spider Man. I kid you not, in the second game, I just keep playing, kept playing, kept playing. I mean, it's a nice blend of like you get to play as Peter and you also get to play as Miles. So it's not like you're just stuck between one or the other. I understand, man. What I'm saying is though is that you look at these characters, they're developmentally great. Again, I I think my theme is, man, is like if you give me a good story and you get me to get the like to believe in these characters and start building them and creating a content where you're really enveloping and you're like this is the world of what this character is, then that's what it is, man. Like that's the kind of story I want to believe in. Like that's why I said I'm not saying that I wouldn't play Mass Effect because I feel like I should. It's also why I'm telling you to play the other games because I'm telling you if you like, I know you like a great story, and there's a reason why these characters do that is because they build the story and they suck you in. But I agree, if more companies decided to do co-op campaigns, like we played other games before, like in Wildlands and in Ghost Recon and things like
Right.
that, these games would be so much better because then you could play as with a buddy and be like, "Hey, man, let's go play Ghost of Tsushima, man, and we're just gonna jump right in and kick some ass," But they don't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for Call of Duty, I mean their campaign is more about the cinematic feature of their campaign, not so much the playability of it. I mean, obviously with Modern Warfare 3, they gave, this one actually you have the choices of whether you want to go in, guns a blazing or sneak around, which was cool.
I will say that the campaign though for that Call of Duty, I played a little bit of it. Holy shit! Like it's not as easy as you think.
No, I mean I did finish the
Oh,
campaign,
did you? Because I didn't. I
it,
haven't.
it's
Still haven't
definitely
finished
it's
it.
definitely harder, and it makes you think a little bit more because most of the other campaigns for the other games, it was pretty straightforward. You had a mission A to B, where you go.
Yeah.
This one, it's like this is where you need to go. You can get there any way you want to. A what?
You
A,
telling me I
a,
have
a,
options now?
a what?
Like, how do I do this now? Do I
But
do
if
go?
you go loud, you're in for a fight.
Oh yeah, it's not a fucking. Oh yeah, no, I know.
Yeah,
I've done
you're
it.
you're in for a fight. But if you go silent, like it, it's still tricky that way because there's literally like a shit ton of people.
And good luck trying to
Yeah,
continue to be silent
yeah.
because yeah. No, I know. I mean, I just beat the first mission not too long ago, and I was like, and I'm now on the one where it was like you're with Price and Ghost, and it's Gaz and Soap, and I'm like, it's the one that he's got to blow up the helicopters, and I'm sitting there like, how the fuck do I do this? And I was, just, and I mean, that was the thing. I was like, I haven't even wanted to
It
play the
was. I
campaign.
mean, it was. I mean, it
That's
was
what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
but
But anyways,
co-op wise, it would be more actual co-op and not just solo player stuff is is key.
no, and I just like I said, I think with video games nowadays, it's like I understand that a lot of people like to play that solo style, but like if you had a buddy that was like, "Hey man, I like to play the same stuff as you," because we do. I mean, we do like generally playing like the same stuff. I know there's some differences we have, but like,
I mean, that's why. I mean, I say Borderlands all the time, and you give me the eye roll all the time. But like, I do love that Borderlands style where I mean, Dead Island does the same thing. It's
I
literally
know.
that drop in style where I can still play solo, But if if you jump on, you literally can just join my game like that, and we're co-op.
I know, and that's why I mean about like a lot of games now. They just need to have that capability. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, we had a good time talking about some video game characters. I mean, if hit us up, tell us what your favorite video game characters are. I mean, because again, I like to talk about more modern stuff. I'm not saying that we don't like to talk about old school, right? But there might be other characters that we may not have mentioned. Of course, I mean, I'm not saying that I haven't played like Mario
I
games
like
or
old
Sonic
school
games.
because I'm the resident old guy, I guess.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm the resident old guy.
Oh,
so
the
I like
resident
to talk about old
okay.
school.
Oh, okay. No, I never said that I don't like talking about it. I mean, shit. I mean, I don't mind playing, some older games. I'm also talking about newer stuff. Because reality is Mario and Sonic, again, iconic characters. I'm not saying that, but there's going to be a point where they're going to be obsolete and they're going to not be the reigning champs anymore. I'm just saying,
Maybe.
there's going to be people that are going to beat them. So, but until next time, boys and girls,
stay geeky.